Bonsoir, French students. Comment allez-vous? As you can see in video 4 of chapitre 2, we're going to be talking about le weekend. Of course, this is an easy word to recognize because it's borrowed into French directly from English. So often that does happen, that languages borrow words from each other, just like we've borrowed lots of words into English from other languages too. Lots of French words and expressions, such as bon appétit. We don't have any equivalent expression like that in English before we eat a good meal. So we'll see lots of borrowing going back and forth between different languages. Okay, so this section of chapter 2 talks about different activities that you might do for fun on the weekends. So we begin with a question up here, which is Qu'est-ce que vous faites d'habitude le samedi? Le samedi, you should hopefully recognize as Saturday. Okay, d'habitude, I hope you recognize as similar to the word habit in English. So d'habitude means something you do all the time, almost like a habit, something you do regularly. So going backwards, qu'est-ce que vous faites? Vous faites means you do. So the verb faire, remember in the previous video we learned about the infinitive. Faire is the infinitive form of to do. So vous faites means you do. So the question, if we put it all together, means qu'est-ce que vous faites? What do you do? D'habitude, usually, regularly, le samedi, on Saturday. What do you usually do on Saturday? Okay. Vous passez la matinée à la maison. Okay, so vous passez, you could probably guess. Passer kind of relates to pass or maybe time in some way. So this is the verb for spend, to spend time. So vous passez la matinée. Matinee, maybe you recognize from going to the movies. If you go to see a matinee, this is a perfect example of a word that we've borrowed from French into English. You know, a matinee is like an early movie, a movie you go to see at like maybe around lunchtime or even in the morning, I guess. So matinee means like the whole morning. Matin is morning. Matinee drags it out so it covers the whole morning period. So do you spend the whole morning or the morning at home, à la maison? So in sum, what do you usually do on Saturday? Do you spend the morning at home? Okay, and we see a lot of expressions here to describe how often we do something. So the first one you see here is toujours. Toujours means always, and if you add the word before that, presque, it means almost always. Okay? The next one we see here is souvent. Souvent would be often, okay? And then moving on down the list, we kind of go from all the time to a little bit less as we move through the chart here. The next one would be, and there are two words you could use here. I added this word parfois. I'm not sure that it shows up in the textbook, but you can say quelquefois or parfois. No, fois means time or times. Quelque or par would mean some. So quelquefois, parfois, and you could even say de temps en temps. Okay, I would have to see if I can add that in here. So if I add a little something there, okay, the picture covers it up a little bit, but let's expand it once again. And hopefully you can see that it's de temps en temps. It's just the same word twice there. It just came into my mind right now. So quelquefois, parfois, de temps en temps, sometimes. And then finally, ne jamais. It's kind of like ne pas when you make a verb negative. So it means never. All right, let's look at some of the sentences. So, en général, so generally, le samedi matin, on Saturday mornings, je suis fatigué. Okay, so you might remember or relate this to the word fatigue or tiredness in English. And don't forget, if you are female and talking about yourself, you would have to add the extra E. So, je suis fatiguée et je reste souvent au lit jusqu'à 10 heures. Je reste, I stay often in my bed until 10 o'clock. So I sleep until 10. So in general, on Saturday mornings, I'm tired and I stay in bed. I often stay in bed until 10 o'clock. And you might notice in French, the word order is a little bit different than it would be in English. We would probably say, I often stay in bed, or often I stay in bed. In French, the word, it comes after the verb. So I stay often in bed until 10 o'clock. So it's a little bit of a difference. And a French speaker who is learning English might have to learn to change the word order to sound more natural in English. Okay. Je mange quelque chose souvent. Okay, so often, I eat something often. So je mange, I eat. This is a new verb that you might not have seen before. It comes from manger. Quelque chose, something. And I can add souvent to that. So je mange quelque chose souvent. I eat something often. Quelquefois, l'après-midi, j'étudie. Okay, so quelquefois, parfois, de temps en temps, sometimes in the afternoon, I study. And remember, if you are saying I study, you have to use the contraction. It's not je étudie. I saw that a little bit in your chapter 1 test. So make sure you're writing that as a contraction. And finally, le soir, je ne reste presque jamais chez moi. So in the evenings, le soir, je ne reste presque jamais. Okay, so here you'll notice ne and jamais. There's no pas. If you're saying jamais for never, that already takes the place of pas. So je ne reste jamais. I never stay. Je ne reste presque jamais. I almost never stay. And then you might notice this new expression here, chez moi. Chez is just a word that means at the home of somebody. So chez moi would mean my home or my place. So in the evening, I almost never stay home. Je vais souvent au cinéma. So I go often to the movies. In English, we'd probably say I often go to the movies, or I go to the movies often, or often I go to the movies. We can move that word around a lot in an English sentence. In French, it's coming right after the verb. Okay, so lots of ways to talk about your activities and how frequently you do them. All right, let's move on. Okay, so we see a few questions here beginning with the pronoun vous, which can mean you, formal, or it can mean a group of people that you're talking to. So, vous aimez, do you like? Vous aimez faire du sport? Remember that you learned about the infinitive. When you have a conjugated verb, like vous aimez, the verb that comes after that is going to be the infinitive. So in English, it would be, do you like to play sports? We would say play in English rather than do. Oh, do you like to play sports? Notice the infinitive to play. So, vous aimez faire du sport? Vous jouez bien au foot? Oh, do you play well soccer? In English, we'd probably say, do you play soccer well? Well would be moved to the end of the sentence. In French, it comes right after the verb. Hey, this is probably a new word, quand. It's another question word and it means when. Oh, quand vous jouez au foot, when you play soccer, est-ce que vous gagnez souvent? Okay, gagner means to win or to earn. In this case, it means win. We're talking about a sport. So, est-ce que vous gagnez souvent? Do you win often? We can also talk about playing a musical instrument, right? Vous aimez jouer de la musique? So, when we talk about playing a musical instrument, we're using jouer de. Vous aimez jouer de la musique? Do you like to play music? Est-ce que vous jouez bien du piano? So do you play the piano well? So in English, bien or well would come at the end of our sentence. In French, it comes right after the verb. Est-ce que vous jouez bien du piano? And we can talk about how we do all those things. So if you're into sports or if you play a musical instrument, you can talk about how well or how not well you do that. So if you wanted to answer this question, est-ce que vous jouez bien du piano? You could say, je joue, I play, très bien. I play very well. Je joue du piano très bien. You could say, je joue du piano assez bien, like fairly well, pretty well. You could say, je joue du piano assez mal. So pretty bad if we want to use more, I think, natural sounding language. Fairly badly, most people probably don't say that in their everyday lives. So the equivalent would be pretty much like, I play pretty badly. Je joue du piano assez mal. Et je joue du piano très mal. Very badly. Okay, so you can use all these different expressions to talk about how well you do that activity or how well you do not do that activity. All right, and finally, we can talk about a few other activities. So you can probably guess what je nage means by looking at the picture. So nager is the verb to swim. So, je nage, I swim assez mal. I swim pretty badly. Je joue très bien au hockey. Je gagne souvent. Oh, I play pretty well hockey, or I play hockey pretty well. I win often. Okay, je joue assez bien du piano. I play piano pretty well. Okay, but again, notice the word order. Assez bien, normally we would place that at the end of our sentence in English. In French, it's coming right after the verb. Je joue assez bien du piano. I play pretty well piano. And finally, je chante. I think you can probably guess what chanter means. That would be the infinitive form. And of course, that is to sing. It's kind of similar to the word chant in English, right? So, je chante, I sing très bien. I sing very well. Okay, so this gives you a few activities that you can talk about in your everyday life, things you might do on the weekend. You're starting to get some idea of how verb conjugations work. I know we haven't quite gotten to that stage, but that is coming next in our next video. We're going to be learning about how to conjugate the most common of French verbs, the ones that end in er, like nager, jouer, chanter. Okay, so that's coming next. So this gives you lots of ways to describe the things you like to do for fun, how well you do them, or how well you don't happen to do them. And then we'll move on to our first set of verb conjugations in video 5 coming later this week. Have a great night. Bonne nuit.